Fix, Finish, and Freshen Up February. I worked my butt off trying to get this done. Yeah, it's a long one. I want to just kind of wipe the slate clean. The other project that I want to finish by the end of February is
I'm Nora, and this is also known as Nora Knits.
Hello there, I'm Nora, and you're watching also known as Nora Knits. Thank you so much for joining me for another podcast episode today. I feel like we have an absolute ton of things to talk about. I have updates on whips. I have final updates on my dad's sweater finished object. I'm also going to be introducing a very casual knit along that I'll be hosting this February, as well as I have a little tiny acquisition. There's just a lot to go through today. So let me begin by telling you very quickly about what I'm wearing. This is the Stripe Hype sweater by Veronica Lindbergh. I did just recently talk all about this project in my top 6 knits video, so I will refer you to that for a more detailed description of this one. But I knit this sweater at some point last year. It's Lion Brand Fisherman's Wool in the colorway Oatmeal for the main color. And then all of the stripes were thrifted yarn, nature spun in different colors, except for the charcoal gray that you see, which was actually some leftover yarn from my dad's birthday sweater last year, and that was Cascade 220 in the colorway Jet. And actually, speaking of that sweater, you're going to see that sweater later at the end of this video. It's kind of part of the knit along, but also figured I would just give you an update on how that has worn. So I think that without further ado, we should just go ahead and dive on in. I am going to start with the finished object that I don't have in my possession this week. That is the Saven by Megan Babine, the all-over cabled sweater that I had knit my dad for his birthday. If you saw last week's podcast, then you saw that I had indeed finished this sweater and it was just ready to be blocked and gifted to my dad. I'll be sure to pop in some photos of my dad in his sweater, but it really did go so well. Just a quick refresher, this sweater was knit from the bottom up in pieces, starting with the sleeves, which I knit 2 at a time, then the back, then the front, and then all of that was seamed together. I chose to start all of my pieces with a provisional cast on, which meant that once the whole sweater was seamed up, I was able to go back and knit the ribbing for the cuffs and the hem all in the round. And I also had to go back and knit the ribbed folded collar. I knit it for my dad in the size 4 using Valley Yarns Northampton in the colorway Denim Heather, and the majority of this sweater was knit up on 4.5 millimeter needles. I have the finished stats for you today, so I'm going to give you that full price breakdown as I typically do, but I did just want to say a couple final updates after having blocked the sweater, gifted it to my dad, and just a little update on my review of things that I had shared last week. So the first thing is, you might be able to tell in the finished object photos that the extra fabric at the clavicle, I was really creative in the way that I had blocked the sweater. I really was pretty meticulous and had quite a few different pins in this area, just pulling and squishing fabric in all different directions. And I really think it paid off in the finished object. You can still see just a little bit that there is extra fabric there, but I was able to block it in a way that it kind of conceals it for now. And we'll just have to see how that holds up. If you're planning to knit this sweater, I really do think that it would be worth it to take the time to adjust the numbers that are going on at the top here. And I'll say it's not my forte, so I don't know even exactly how to advise you to do that. I know other people have talked about what they would kind of do in their Ravelry notes for this project. So my best advice would be to just read through all of the notes that you can from other Ravelry users on this project, and keep in mind that it can be concealed with blocking, but there still is just too much fabric in this area. And so if you're feeling a little bit more bold and daring, maybe try changing the decrease rate or the length to which you're knitting this little area, but it does certainly need to be addressed. The other thing I would say is that even though I had blocked all of the pieces before seaming them together, when I did the final blocking, I did my absolute best to stretch this out, and I did get a little extra width out of it, but still not the full 46-inch circumference that I should have gotten. My gauge was the same, so I'm not really sure what happened in translation there. Maybe it had something to do with the way that I seamed up the pieces of this sweater, that mine, I feel like, wound up just being a little bit smaller than I had hoped it would be. In the end, I think it fits my dad really, really well. And the only thing that I could see maybe being altered or changed in the future, if my dad wants me to after he's worn it a few more times, is, first of all, the sleeves wound up being really, really snug, more than the rest of the sweater. And that was something I knew before blocking it even, so I tried to remedy it. But I do feel like the sleeves, I'm not really sure how I could fix that other than kind of unseaming the sleeves and removing the ribbing and trying to like add a few stitches or something in between. I think it would be manageable. I'm hopeful that it will just kind of stretch out over time, or maybe even if I just steam block it again and kind of stretch the sleeves out. That's one of the bigger kind of issues with the overall fit. But the other thing is, I mentioned that I did kind of modify the hem of my dad's sweater by doing just two kind of back and forth German short rows in the ribbing at the hem of the sweater, so that the back of it's literally 2 rows longer than the front. I'm going to see how this wears a little bit, and it's possible that I'm going to steal the sweater back from my dad and knit the whole ribbing just a little bit longer. But especially in the back, I think I could even add a few more short rows. And that's not something that's part of the pattern at all. It is designed to just be knit actually starting with the ribbing and then working your way up. But I think that that's another reason why I would advocate for just starting your pieced bottom-up sweaters with a provisional cast on, because I do have the flexibility to easily go back and kind of make those little changes. It wouldn't be the end of the world for me to just kind of snip the bind off and go through and add a few more rows to the back than there are in the front. And I had done this with my dad's birthday sweater last year. I'm not really sure why it is that this is the case, but I do feel like for a men's sweater to have a little extra length in the back than it does in the front, it's very beneficial. But all in all, my dad's really happy with this sweater. I think it looks so good on him. I'm also just really happy to have been able to take these photos of my dad. I think he looks so handsome. I'm sure you'll agree. And I also wanted to extend a thank you from him for all of the birthday wishes. He was really, really overjoyed to read all of the comments that you guys left. So I really appreciate you doing that too. Let me give you the quick rundown on the project price and just the typical stats that I feel like, when's the last time we had a finished object that we were even able to do this? So let us get into that now. I'm going to read them straight off of the iPad as per usual. So we're talking about the Saven by Megan Babine. The pattern price for this one is about $9. I purchased the pattern with my own money, and it was not in my library already. I did purchase it specifically to knit this for my dad. The yarn I used, like I said, was Valley Yarns Northampton in the colorway Denim Heather, and that was not in stash. I did go out to purchase it specifically for this project. At full price, when I bought this yarn, it was about $10.49 per skein. However, Webs does the thing where if you spend so much money, you get a discount. So I was able to pay $8.49 per skein. And in the end, I tapped into 7 skeins. I have mentioned that I barely touched that 7th one. However, I do think that it's great to have that kind of balls just sit in here, because if I need to make those adjustments, I think I have plenty of yarn from that single ball to make that happen. Now, that means that had I bought all of the yarn at full price, my total would have been about $73.43. However, because I bought that yarn at Webb's with the sale, this is their yarn as well, it was $59.43. And with no additional expenses, the full price project total, so that's for the yarn and the pattern, would have paid $82.43 at full price. But with the sale, I spent a total of $68.43 on this sweater. And that was all for a project that was on my needles for a total of 36 days from cast on to finish, blocked, and woven in, the whole deal, which also means that this cost about $1.90 per day to knit on. I'm actually thrilled with those finished costs. I really did think that this project was going to take way more yarn than it did. I have quite a bit of yarn still left over, and I'm going to try and figure out what I can do with that. But overall, I've loved the yarn. My dad loves the yarn. He's been wearing this sweater nonstop since I gifted it to him. And he even mentioned that he had worn it to church one day and it was like a little bit too warm, possibly. So I think that'll get our wheels turning for next year. Maybe dad needs a little bit of a thinner sweater for his birthday. But all in all, I'm super happy with the finished object. So is my dad. And we'll just keep an eye on it to see if we need to make those changes in the future. And if we do, we have the yarn to do it. So that is the Saven by Megan Babine. The next thing I'm really excited to talk to you about today is the Grayling Sweater by Magdalena Parker. I had set myself a pretty wild goal last week of trying to get this sweater, which I'm knitting into a dress, done in time to go with my family to see The Lion King on Broadway. And I've got to tell you, it was a really insane goal, but I worked my butt off trying to get this done. And I knew it was going to come down to the wire, and that I would either be in a position where it was done just by the skin of my teeth, or it was going to be so close to being done that it would almost be more frustrating. And that is exactly what happened. Let me get my Grayling on Helena the Hanga so you can see the work I was able to do in 1 week. All right, you guys, here we have the Grayling. I do have a progress keeper from where we were last week, which is right over here. And I was able to accomplish so much knitting. It's a little bit absurd. So where things are at right now is I'm actually working on the ribbing of the hem of the dress. I have both sleeves knit up to the point that she tells you to in the pattern just before knitting the ribbing on those, and we're still waiting on a collar. Now, in my efforts to get this done in the time that I was trying to, I was really focusing on getting the body done. So that was where most of my attention went. I did knit the full length of the dress as I had always intended, and I think I'm about halfway done with the ribbing that I'm doing at the hem of my dress. I have also decided that the sleeves are going to need probably another at least half of a cable repeat, and then a few inches of ribbing there. And then I'm pretty sure I'm sold on doing the folded over collar like it's written in the pattern. So that still needs to be done 2. Obviously, this all means that I was not able to wear this to the city, which, by the way, was yesterday. Last night, we went and saw The Lion King. It was fantastic. We had dinner at a place called Carmine's, and it was so delicious. If you're planning to go into the city to see a show, I definitely do recommend. It was a lot of food, so make sure you're going to share, but it was a really great time. I actually wound up wearing my Artemisia sweater instead, but I figured out on Wednesday night that the ribbing was just taking so long. It was time to call it quits. And honestly, I'm more than anything impressed with the amount of work that I was able to get done, more than I am upset that I didn't get to wear it. And realistically, I'm just glad that it's so close to being done now. So I don't want to crush the momentum on this a little bit. I'm going to crush the momentum a little bit because I've worked on it a ton over the past week. But I am still going to try, and I'd love to see this done in the next podcast, if not at least, just ready to be blocked by then. The order of operations I'm going to take here will be to just finish the hem. I want to get the body done. I've been trying it on as well as referencing a couple of other dresses for the length. Also keeping in mind that when I block it, I'm probably going to shrink up a little bit, but also as I wear it, it's probably going to weigh down a little bit. So that's kind of going to be a little bit of a gamble, but not one that I'm so concerned about. If I am questioning it, I'm thinking that I might just knit the ribbing up until the point where I think it's good and then just leave it on try-it-on tubing while I block it so that if I have to rip back a little or if I want to knit a little bit more, I have that opportunity in the end. Once that is where I'm happy with it, though, I am going to move on to the collar next. The only reason I didn't do that was because I thought maybe I could get the sleeves and the body all done on Wednesday. And then I was like, maybe I could just block it overnight and then knit the collar Thursday morning. Obviously, that didn't happen. So I do still want to just knit the collar to make sure that I'm right about the sleeve length. But my idea here is that they do seem too short right now. And then knitting the collar should only kind of shrink them up a little bit, which means that I'm pretty certain they're going to need another few inches. Now, in the pattern, she does tell you for the hem to knit through a full cable repeat, which means ending with a cable twist and then going into the ribbing. But based on the measurements that I was taking, I did just stop halfway through the cable repeat. So it's kind of stopped at the largest, the widest point of the cable. And then I started the ribbing out of that. I think I can replicate that same look on the sleeves by, again, just knitting another half of a cable repeat and then starting the ribbing. And I'm going for a few inches of ribbing. I think that this whole dress will be balanced out really nicely by a good 3 inches or so of ribbing. So I feel like between those two things, I'll be able to get these sleeves to the length I want them to be. But otherwise, I can always just finish out that full cable repeat if need be. I will say now that I've tried it on a few times, I'm really, really just trying to keep the faith in the blocking process because as it is right now, this dress is fitting me like a fitted dress, which was not the goal, but I cast on and started knitting in the size 4, and when I got to the underarms, it just looked like it was going to be too big, and I was referencing another sweater dress that I had, so I felt confident about then shrinking the size down, starting at the underarms, and I am now essentially knitting it between the sizes 3 and 4, which I had done by removing the full cable that would have been under the arm had I knit the size 4 and yet not eliminating all of those stitches entirely like the size 3 would have, but instead I have a small row a small column of stockinette running down the sides, like a little pinstripe. And based on when I had made that change and I blocked the whole top of this, that really did seem like the right move. So I am hoping that it has a lot to do in blocking, which also, now that I'm saying that out loud too, I do remember the whole reason that was happening anyway was because a lot of people had mentioned that they had knit with this yarn, which is Knit Picks Wonder Fluff in the colorway Espresso Heather. And they said that their projects grew so obscenely in blocking. So I think I could breathe a little sigh of relief after seeing how it's been fitting me pre-blocking. So we will just have to see. As of today, she's been on the needles for a good while. It's been 116 days, and I am just feeling eager to push through and get this done. So keep your fingers crossed. Hopefully we can do that by next podcast. I will actually try and show you while it's on the hanger how much I have done. Let's see. There's a lot of dress here. Yeah, it's a long one, but I am excited about it. I'm excited and eager to get this done. So I think a lot of my attention over the week will still be focusing on this, but I will allow myself to pay a little bit more attention to other projects, which I really did not do since we spoke last. So that is the Grayling by Magdalena Parker. Like I said, on the needles for 116 days today. Once I realized that the Grayling wasn't going to get done, I really needed a little bit of a break from it. So just a little bit yesterday and a little bit this morning, I did try to make some small strides on my lingering whip that kind of keeps falling to the wayside. And that is the Granada sweater by Claudia Quintanilla. The yarn and the book that this pattern is in were both gifted by Unit Toronto, Claudia Quintanilla. It's a sweater that features a pretty simple stockinette body, and then the star of the show are these crocheted leg of mutton sleeves. And I will say that this has been kind of the perfect little reprieve after knitting, what feels like absolute miles of that Grayling. So let me show you what I was able to get done. Okay, I know that this really doesn't look like anything at all, but I'm really glad that I was able to get to this point because where this has been hanging out, waiting for me to pick it up, has been with this back panel knit up, sitting on some try-it-on tubing, waiting for me to go back and pick up the stitches for the front pieces of this sweater. So yesterday and today, I was able to go ahead and do that. I picked up the stitches for the shoulders, knit with increases and casting on new stitches for the front of the neck. And since the two pieces have now been joined, which means that I'm working this flat back and forth until I reach the measurement specified in the pattern. And the next goal will then be to work my way down to the point where the underarm meets the back panel. And this will then move into some really mindless, lovely stockinette in the round knitting. Now, this yarn is that Ito, Sensai, and Kinu. It's a silk and a silk mohair. The colorway is peach and cinnamon. So I think that this is going to be a really great way to start making your way into spring. It'll be a perfect time to finish up this project. It is also just that nice little change up because the Grayling is 5.5 millimeter needles and this one is a 3.5 millimeter needle. So it feels just so light, and honestly it is. It's so lightweight as I'm working on it, where the Grayling, it's just this big cumbersome thing now. This is a really nice transition to be able to focus a little bit more on now. So the goal I'm setting for the next week is definitely, I'd love to get to the point where I am knitting in the round under the arm, and then hopefully we could start talking about those crocheted sleeves, because that's the part that I'm really excited to get to. I'll go ahead and move the progress keeper here so that it's on the front now. So definitely let's hope that we've reached that goal for next week. As of today, this poor project has been on the needles for 52 days, and it's time for her to get more attention, which does just seem so much more feasible now, considering the fact that my two major deadline whips they're beyond their deadline. It was the Saven and the Grayling. The Saven is done and behind us, and the Grayling has missed its deadline, and it's just a matter of getting it done now, but there's no real pressure to get it done ASAP. So I think we can make a lot more progress in a lot less time moving forward with this Granada. Okay, so those are the two active whip big projects, the Grayling and the Granada. With the Saven now behind us, and as we're coming up on spring, I've been thinking a lot about kind of just where we're at with all of the whips and the projects and the goals that I have for the year. And that was what led me to want to do this knit along. Like I said, this is pretty casual. I'll try to come up with some prizes at the end of the month, but really this was just something that I wanted to make a priority for myself this February, and I thought there might be some other people who wanted to do the same. So this is what I'm calling Fix, Finish, and Freshen Up February. The idea is that I have quite a few knits that I'm ready to just give a little extra attention to, so that hopefully moving into spring, moving into March, we can get some new projects on the needles and not feel guilty about it. So I've compiled a little list of projects that I want to fix and finish and freshen up. Of course, in the finish category, the Grayling is kind of top of mind. I do want to finish that project by the end of February. I want to finish it by next week, but we'll say by the end of February, just in case. I'd love for the Granada to be in that category as well. And the other project that I want to finish by the end of February is my Sand Cardigan by Maria Iseva of Ulan Knitwear. That's right. It is a goal of mine to get this cardigan done by the end of the month. Now, I know that some people are going to be watching this thinking, what the heck is this project? I've never even seen it before. And then there are other people who have been relentlessly asking for the return of this project. And I've been telling you it's going to happen, I promise. So here it is. This is the Sand Cardigan. This has been a dream project of mine for the past full year. I actually cast this project on 355 days ago. I've been knitting it out of my dream yarn, which is Nora Madara in the colorway 01 Sake. Now, similarly to the Grayling, this is a garment that I cast on in one size and then kind of altered the body to be working in a smaller size, I think. I know that I cast this project on in the size 5. However, I mentioned a few podcasts back that a bunch of my notes on some long-term whips had been wiped away from my iPad. And so I need to do a little refresher by actually referring back to some old videos just to double check kind of where things were. But what I know for sure is that the body is fully knit in this garment. That is done. It has a folded hem at the bottom, which looks beautiful. And I have been slowly chugging away at the double knit button band, which I chose to knit a double knit button band as you go, as opposed to the way it states in the pattern, which is to pick up all of the stitches first and then knit the double knit button band. So you can probably see right here, I have my little DP ends hanging out, and that is where I've left off. So I do need to finish this button band from here all the way down to the hem of this ankle length cardigan. Once that's done, I also need to go back and add the pockets for this cardigan. And then the final thing I will have to do is the cuffs on the sleeves, which I've just been waiting to get a really good try on with the double knit button band and everything to determine if they are the right length or not. So this is a huge priority of mine to try and get done by the end of February. And so you should be seeing a lot more of it in the coming weeks. So those are the finish it kind of section of this knit along. The Grayling, the Granada, and the sand cardigan. Now let's move into a couple of things that I'm planning to fix this February. The first thing that really shouldn't come as a surprise is my yoga winter sweater by Nora. I did talk about wanting to make these alterations in that top 6 knits video, so I'll keep this brief. But basically, my plans for this are to go back and add a few inches to the sleeves on this one. I'm pretty sure I'm just going to snip off the last row of the bind off and then rip back all of the ribbing, then re-knit and stockinette for about the length that the ribbing is right now, and then re-knit the ribbing over again. On top of that, I want to alter the collar on this turtleneck. I'm thinking right now that my plan for that is going to be to just pick up stitches where I left off with the collar, which actually it was knit from the top down starting with that. So that is the cast on edge. And I'm going to knit an additional length of collar, just a little bit shorter than what's already there. And I think I'm going to, at the very least, tack that down on the inside. Or I might wind up seaming it down in there. That I haven't really decided yet, but I feel like this sweater needs a chunkier collar on it. And I feel like the length I knit it to is just the littlest bit too long. So I'm just going to hide that cast on edge on the inside of the sweater where only I will see it. And that will give me the opportunity to shrink the height of the collar, but also add a little bit more chunkiness to it. If you have suggestions on other ways to do that, please let me know. But right now, that's feeling like the most feasible way. So this is definitely something that's very important to me to get done, as I do wear this sweater quite a bit. And every time I have it on, I'm like, man, I wish these sleeves were a little longer. I wish this collar was doing what I wanted it to do. So that is one thing we have to fix. Another thing on the fix list is my sister's Poets cardigan. I asked her if I could take this back because she mentioned that my fear was true, which was that the button on the top button on this sweater, I placed the buttonhole a little bit too high. And at first she said it didn't bother her, but then she said since she's gone on to wear it after that, every time she's put it on, she's wished that it was just a little bit lower. So I think what I'm going to do is just seam up where this buttonhole is and literally force a new buttonhole a little bit lower. And I think that that's going to be a pretty simple, quick fix just to make this a little bit more comfortable for my sister and wind up having the look that I wanted it to have in the end anyway. So I think that of all of my goals here, this one should be one of the quicker ones. And then I have a few things that I want to talk to you about that I'd like to freshen up. First things first, I'm not even going to bother putting this on the hanger, but this is my Sailor Swift top by Veronica Lindbergh. And I've just worn this so many times. I need to wash this. I'm hoping that some of the like deodorant stains will come out of this. And yeah, I just need to give this a good thorough wash because I've worn it so much. So that's the first thing that has to be freshened up. Next on the freshen up list is this sweater that you will only have seen if you watched, I think, my Everything I Knit video back in 2023. So this was actually one of the first sweaters that I had knit. It is called the Warm Up Sweater by Espace Tricot. It's one of their free patterns, and I actually knit this up in the summer of my first year of knitting using some Lopi yarn. And at the time, I did not know about spit splicing, so I have a ton of ends to weave in here. As you can see, I did try to just do some stripes because I did not have enough of any one color of yarn. I cannot for the life of me remember if I've blocked this yet or not, but I think I will weave in the ends and then also give it a good block because if I have, it's just been sitting out. It does kind of feel like I did block it, but I think it deserves another block. And then maybe I'll actually be able to wear this sweater because it's been done for years and I've never worn it. I guess that this would also kind of just fit into the category of finish. But really, I have all of these ends to weave in, so I do want to get that done ASAP. So please hold me to that with this sweater. And finally, on the freshen up pile is my dad's birthday sweater from last year. I asked him if I could just take this one away for a spa weekend while he enjoys the first couple of weeks with his new sweater, so that I could both give you guys an update on how this has worn. As I've said, the Lopi is choking me. My dad has worn this sweater quite a bit, so I thought it was about time we should take the deep pillar to it. I'd like to give it just a fresh, block and wash it so that he can get another good solid year of wear out of it. Now, I had knit this up for my dad in Cascade 220 Superwash. He's never washed it. I told him not to. I told him I would take care of it if it ever needed that. And what I really wanted to show you today was just how well this has worn. Obviously, it's a darker color, so you're just not going to see as much of those little imperfections with wear. But even still, when you're looking closely, there's not a ton of pilling on this. It has overall really held up so well. He did mention that he doesn't usually wear it under something else, so it's not like it's spending a lot of time under a jacket or something. But I mean, for the amount that he's worn it, I would expect to see a bit more pilling, especially. So it looks like there's just a little bit kind of going on in here and a little bit on the upper back. Probably places just when he's sitting down, it's like rubbing up against. But even under the arms, it's really not too bad. So this is something that I'm going to prioritize in the next couple of days here. Just giving it a quick depill and reblocking it so that it's nice and fresh for him again. And hopefully by maintaining his sweaters, annually, it'll help them to live their best life possible. The only thing I'm nervous about with reblocking this one is having the zipper sit in the water. So if this is something that you have experience with, I feel like, am I not going to rust out this zipper? But then I think, well, we wash things with zippers all the time. So should this be a concern of mine? Definitely let me know if you have experience with it. If anything, I could just keep that part out and maybe just kind of wash and block the body of it. But regardless, it just needs a little bit of TLC, and I'm really happy to report on how well this yarn has held up. I want to try the Cascade 220 non-superwash and see if that holds up just the same, because if so, then I really would love to make more garments in this yarn. For the price and for the quality, I think it's a really great option. So that is everything in my Freshen Up category. with this Fix Finish Freshen Up February, my goal really is just to focus on finishing these couple of garments that I have on the needles that I want to get off, and just supplementing weekly with a little bit of extra attention on the other projects I've now shown you. I don't know if it's feasible to get all of that done in the next few weeks, but I think if nothing else, it's one of those things that I would love to just kind of prioritize up until the spring marker shows up. But realistically, my thought here is that I want to just kind of wipe the slate clean from my mental list of things to get done in my knitting and the physical things that I could see piling up around me that I've just been waiting for that extra attention that they need. And so by doing this, my thought is that I'm trying to hold myself to not casting on a new project until this little list has kind of been fully checked off. And I think that that should serve as some good motivation to really get these things done because I've been wanting to get them done. And sometimes you just need that little extra push to really do it. So that's also why I thought I would invite you, if you have anything that you're planning to fix, finish, or freshen up this February, let us know in the comments. I know sometimes it's just so helpful to know that other people are in that same boat with you. And hopefully, if nothing else, we can use the next few weeks to make really great strides towards getting some of these goals done. And then I think spring will feel that much better just starting out with a nice, clean slate. So, in the next few podcasts, I will update you with whatever I was able to check off of that list. And hopefully, by the end of the month, we will have at least accomplished most of it. With all of that out of the way, I do just have one more quick thing to chat about today, and that is the acquisition. I found myself back at the same thrift store that I purchased my mohair from last week. And in last week's video, I showed you some of the yarn that I had left behind. And when I went back, these leftover skeins were 50% off. So at that point, it was definitely worth it for me to grab them. So I did wind up picking up a few of these mini skeins. These are 7th Floor Yarn DK Minis. They're 75% superwash merino and 25% nylon. And they're each 20 grams and 49 yards. They also each have a little stitch marker with them. As far as I can tell, these were part of an advent. I actually think it was a Christmas in July advent from what I was able to see online. And they were originally priced at Goodwill at $3.99, but the green color was half off. So I got each of them for $2, and I think for that price, they're going to be really nice to add to my future scrappy blanket project that will be happening absolutely no time soon. But when you see something like this, it's a good find. I did only scoop up a few of the colors that they had left just so that I didn't add, completely unnecessary yarns, but I grabbed my favorite colors that I still saw there. Did they even have their names on? No, they don't have a name on them. Oh, no, wait. Oh, this one's called Lanui. Hey, Tropical Paradise is the yellow, and then the purple is Luau. So that was a really fun find. I will say that the rest of that basket of yarn was completely gone, and it was just the mini skeins that were left and a bunch of acrylic yarn. But I decided that was, like I said, a good enough deal that it was definitely worth it for me to grab. So I told you I had a lot to talk about today. I do want to try during this little knit along to kind of set my focus for each week. So I think that the top priorities are going to be in the category of finish this week. The Grayling will be top of mind just because it's so close to being done. I feel like we might as well just cross that finish line. If there's a point where I have time to work on something else that's a little bit more mindless, then I think the sand cardigan will be a great place to go. since I can just kind of work back and forth on that button band and we have plenty of it to do still. As far as fixing, I might just snip those cuffs off of the yoga winter sweater just to kind of get that ball rolling and keep me from completely letting that fall to the wayside. But I also know it will just take a few minutes to do my sister's sweater. I just don't think I'll be seeing her in the next week, so it doesn't need to be at the top of my priority list. However, in the category of freshening up, I think the first thing to go will be my dad's sweater. In fact, I'm itching to depill that as we speak. So I think I'll hit it with the depiller as soon as I'm done filming today. And I'll report back next week to see what I was able to accomplish. With that, I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I would so appreciate it if you would go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you subscribe and ring the bell, you're going to be notified anytime I post a new video. However, you can always count on there being a new video every Saturday morning at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. And with that, a big old thanks for watching, and I will catch you on the next one. All right, you guys, bye.